talk about regenerating geometry within creo parametric using Nitro-CELL. I have a couple of models here that have some parameters set to them to control the height of these particular components. So I'm going to use these as basically a reference, and we're going to actually set the parameters of those. It's the parameters height for both of them, but we'll say, let's see, magnet.prt is one of them, and the other one is front plate. So the magnet is currently set to 8. Let's make that 15. And the front plate is currently 4.5. Let's make that 10. And we'll call this front plate.prt. Okay, so now if I just go in and run this right now, you'll notice that it doesn't regenerate or anything. It's just setting those values. If I manually go in and press the Control G to regenerate, you can see that these in fact have changed to the values that are there. So if we go and we set this up with a regenerate function, model regenerate here, if we just do the top level assembly, which is the active model here, it's going to rely on Creo's regeneration process to kind of figure the rest out. So if we set this to 30 and this to maybe 7 and regenerate, you'll notice that it does in fact adjust this to 7 and this to 30. So that all seems to work just fine. But here's an interesting thing you have to be kind of conscious about. It's always best to kind of regenerate the top levels that you're kind of working with. However, if you have a bunch of things occurring in memory that you need to regenerate independent of a top level that's currently being displayed, you can regenerate these models independently. So we can come in and just say magnet and front plate can be independent regenerations. And if we set this to, let's say, 10, and this to 15 and hit the do it button, you'll notice that as I spin the display here and it kind of refreshes the graphics, that the assembly doesn't look quite right. And the reason for that is because the assembly has not regenerated, the components themselves have. So if we hit the regenerate button here, you'll notice that, or do a manual force regenerate, you can see that it does regenerate the assembly to update those positions based on the change of geometry. You can also be very generic about things. So if we wanted to put in a wild card, and let's go change this magnet to, let's say, 35, and the front plate to, well, let's go down to 6. And now if we do that star.prt, you'll notice that it basically has the same effect as before. The assembly is not regenerating, so it kind of looks a little bit funny if I do a manual force regeneration that it's correct. You can, of course, just put in a star.star and regenerate anything that's in session. That's a little bit extreme. I wouldn't do that necessarily. I would recommend you just do the top level assembly. So it is a bit of a painful process to kind of go through that. It does add time to do it that way. So it is better to just let Creo do the heavy lifting instead of being specific. And if we set this to one value and let's say this to another value, same value in this case, and just let it do things at the top level for the active model, that's usually the best way to do things.